Welcome to the partnership path in real life. Ever felt the gap between theory and reality? We're here to bridge that. Dive into real stories, real challenges, and real successes from professionals just like you in the partner and channel management world. Each episode is a journey, a lesson from those who've walked the partnership path, faced the challenges, and reaped the rewards. Whether you're a seasoned partner manager or just starting your journey, this is where theory meets practice. Ready to see the real side of partnership? Let's get started.
All right. Well, welcome to the show, Peter. I'm so glad that you're here. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to share your wisdom and experience with our community. Um, let me give you a chance to introduce yourself to the community. Tell us a little bit about how long you've been working with partners and who you are.
Yeah, so my name is Peter Martin. I'm a global partner manager at Microsoft, and I've been with the company going on 9 years now.
Nice.
Um, in the partner development role for the entire time, I've seen the evolution of this role and this organization through many iterations, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And I love everything that you presented in all of our sessions, John, and looking forward to sharing some of the feedback. And thank you very much. I should have led with that actually for for having me on the show.
Yeah, we're glad you're here. Well, let's start. Look, this episode that we're kind of reacting to was all about strategic alignment, strategic visioning with the partner. So let's start with kind of how you reacted either to the episode or to that topic the first time you came across it in the training that we did.
Well, I mean, my one liner is I would say I was blown away, with the level of thought and detail in the session. So first of all, fantastic, fantastic work by you and your team. Um, and the next reaction was, a combination of things, right? With this particular role and with most partnerships and partnership roles, there's no real training out there, is there? Right?
Yeah,
You don't
yeah,
really you don't go through your college life or business training and say I want to do partner management. It doesn't. There's no track for it. It's sort of like
right.
this evolution of your past roles, and somehow we wind up in this role. So most of us come from that, right? And you learn all of these things over time, and you build your own kind of skill set. Um, and then you watch the sessions that you put forward, and you realize, wow, I've known all of this stuff, but it's so great to refresh my
Yeah,
mind in a structured kind of way.
yeah,
So the big takeaway was reviewing it, and even though you know it, when you think you know something, right? And
yeah,
you do, but reviewing it with a structured kind of mindset was the biggest takeaway. Even when you know it, even when you think you're really skilled at it, it was
for sure.
fantastic to go through that and reassess my own strengths and weaknesses, and
Yeah.
and reassess how to handle strategy and partnerships.
For sure. Yeah. It's one of the things we aim for in the way we do this, right? Is very often we know that we're not probably teaching you something you've never even thought of. It's not rocket science after all. But a lot of times it is stuff that maybe but you're not doing, or you knew but forgot, right? Or you kind of do, but you don't really think about it in a structured way. And so, yeah, that's totally our goal, is to kind of give you that structure and sort of remind you of those things. And this is really what we want to do here in this episode too, is really kind of remind the rest of the community about some of those key things that help you drive strategic alignment with your partners. um, one of the things we talked about in the episode and in the training session is this concept of, trying to paint a vision that's about becoming, right? About what do we want to be together over the long term? How does that play out for you with the partners you work with?
I That's great. It's fundamental. It's core to the relationship, and I've learned over time to establish that as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
especially since, in at least in Microsoft, right, and most other companies, and partners, we're under immense pressure to drive business goals in a
Sure.
very short amount of time. It's fiscal year to fiscal year. For Microsoft, July is the new June, is what we say, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to go, and you really only have 10 months. You don't really have 12 months. So
Right.
we're under those pressures, and our partners are under those pressures. So we tend to show up to those partnerships, and we move so fast, on both sides, and maybe skip over what we want to become in the long term, or try to
Yeah.
move fast on that and don't get full alignment. And that's critical mistake number one. And it will
Sure.
lead to just continued misalignment and confusion, right? And
Yeah.
so getting alignment very, very quickly on where is your business going, where is this partnership going, and why
Yeah.
is absolutely baseline. And then revisiting that, in as you covered in these sessions, revisiting that as often as is necessary, at least quarterly, among stakeholders, to test that,
Yeah.
assertion. Yeah.
Yeah. What does that look like for you, Peter? When you first start with a partner, and I agree with you. I think we're all under so much pressure to hit the short term numbers that sometimes we jump straight into execution mode. We kind of skip over that what do we want to be together kind of conversation. So, what does that look like for you? How do you, kind of pragmatically with a partner say, hold on a second, let's have this conversation. Like, do you have a special meeting for it? Do you put it on an agenda? Like, what does that really look like when if I'm a new partner manager out there listening to this and I hear all that and I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, but how do I do that? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, that we can have a whole session on just that alone. So I'll do my best to just try to summarize that. The reality of that, reacting to the to the recent session that was done, is that's going to be a few different discussions that need to
Okay.
happen. Um, but generally speaking, you really need the business leaders, you need that alignment, and so that's going to comprise the CEO, the head of product, the head of sales,
Yep.
the head of finance, the C-suite, right? Sometimes
Yep.
you're not going to get all of them. Sometimes, just a few of them, but you have to figure out what they care about, what and how
Right.
they're trying to grow their business. You have to get to that, and you have to get to, can you really help them, and form that narrative, and you
Yep.
and that's something you need to do in this role. You need to figure. Nobody's going to tell you how to do that. Yes, you're going to need to approach that CEO and figure out how to have a relevant discussion at that person's level, and figure
Yeah.
out what their responsibilities are in a year, the next 18 months, 2 years, for growing their company, and figure out pretty quickly, is there a path that, at least from a Microsoft perspective, but if it's another, organization, can we really help this company, attain their goals?
Yeah.
And it's getting to that fundamentally, and having that discussion, um, that we mentioned before, on what is it that we want to become together. Once we come to that alignment, are we in agreement? Can I
Yeah.
help you? Can you help me? Okay, this is
Yeah.
the fundamental of partnership. It sounds easy,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
getting to that, and then proving to each other that you can actually do it. Those are the folks that need to buy in. Those business leaders need to buy in. Very often, it starts somewhere else. It starts kind of,
Okay.
it comes from another location that discussion originates. And sometimes it's hard to understand, well, what are the leaders really looking for? What do they want? And
Yeah.
sometimes there's protection mechanisms. Oh, really? We don't want to bring you to the C level because of whatever reason.
Sure.
And those are things that you need to overcome pretty quickly. And you have to bring those people to the table, those leaders to the table, and get that alignment. It's okay if it starts lower down in the org, but then you have to make the ask. Okay, are
Yeah.
your leaders in line with this?
Yeah.
And I need to hear it from them. I trust that it's you, and you can be. They need to come and commit somehow, at least once. you know,
That's right.
ideally more.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I hear a couple of things in there, right? One is, I hear you saying a lot of listening. right? And probably some research, but also asking those questions, right? Of what is it you're really trying to do in the business? Where are you trying to go? What markets are you trying to go after? Where do you think you're strong? Where do you think you're weak? What's your growth plan look like? I think sometimes as partner managers, we come to the table thinking we're supposed to have a presentation to give. When in reality, I think what you're saying is it's more about learning and asking questions first than anything else.
That's exactly right. You have to get to the bottom very specifically. What do they care about, and can you help them? If you
Yeah.
can't, you need to figure out what they care about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
can repeat. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I think, part of what we would talk about too is that the reality is that sometimes you can't, right? Sometimes you learn enough to learn that, you know what, this partnership isn't going to be super helpful to you based on where you're trying to go. And we need to be ready to acknowledge that. And in other cases, we have partners sometimes that don't want to, for whatever reason, they don't really want to have a strategic relationship with us. And our ability to ask those questions and figure that out is super critical.
You know what I find that's really interesting, and you're right, that does happen, but where roles roles like this can really grow is developing your innovation track.
Yeah.
What'll happen, what you'll find many times is these leaders are already focused on something. They've already been in the board meetings. Their investors have
Yep.
told them, we want this. Here's our plan for how we're going to grow. And you're
Yeah.
coming in many times orthogonal to that, right? And they might already have blinders on. Like, look, I have my plan. What are you talking about over here? Can you
Yeah.
you might be presenting something that now they have to go and convince a lot of other people, like, hey, they have there's another way we can grow here.
Yeah.
And so being able to innovate on growth for your own company and the partner is something that is a skill that you have to develop, and you have
Yeah.
to, that's why it's what do they care about, that you're, when you get into that, getting that information of what they care about, you're probably going to get some of the information of how others around them care about. I mean, these are leaders,
Yeah.
right? They're all going to be driving this together.
Yeah.
So you're going to then get a sense for how you can innovate to get on that roadmap or to help them with that roadmap. And
Right.
so that innovation track is something that you can develop over time to help with those discussions with those types of leaders.
Yeah. Look, Peter, you're talking right on the edge of a episode that we did a few episodes ago, which was about that being a partner manager is actually a sales job, but it might not be the sales job you think it is. And
Fantastic.
that's so much of what you're describing, right? Is that everything you're describing are salesperson skill sets, right? Really understanding where your customer, in this case, the partner, is trying to go and what's really important to them, and then figuring out how do we match with that? How do we help do that? And being innovative and creative in the way we try and answer that question. That's a sales job. And I think a lot of partner management people think of themselves as salespeople, but they only think about selling to the customer. And so much of strategic alignment is actually selling to the partner, the idea of partnership, right? Of selling that kind of strategic vision of where we could go together.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I will say 9 times out of 10, what you're selling is very challenging, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's good in two ways. It's challenging to do, but I tend to know when I'm doing it right when I'm agitating or
Yeah.
I'm challenging the beliefs of my own organization and other organizations, positively, of
Yeah.
course, constructively, of course. Like,
Sure. Sure.
how are you going to grow from where you are to where you say you would like to be, right? And
Yeah.
so, challenging that with an opportunity. Hey, this is a really great opportunity. Obviously, presenting your innovation.
Right.
You'll know you'll know if you're doing it right when you get that that
Yeah.
interesting kind of pushback. Like, holy moly,
Yeah.
I didn't consider it from that perspective. That's what you're looking for. because
Sure.
not everybody knows all the opportunities that are out there. And I think in this role, many times there's also a fear in I might be presenting something that is going to get a negative reaction, or how could I assume to know more,
Right.
than some of these leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you have to be able to develop into that expert, and they're gonna challenge. Do you really know what your innovation is, right? And so those are things
Yeah.
that just come with this role. I would
For
suggest
sure.
if you really believe in that innovation, push for it and drive those discussions.
Yeah, look, I want to close out with one last question for you because we try and keep these relatively short sessions. So, um, when you get answers to all of that, and when you get some commitment from the executives on that, what do we want to be or where do we want to go together? Question: what's your sort of pragmatic, practical attempt at documenting that? How do you write that down in a way that's helpful for the partnership? What do you do?
Immediately get it into some sort of an agreed upon strategy plan. And I'm
Okay.
and I'm using strategy plan very intently. Hopefully, you'll recognize I was listening very closely in our discussion. It will need to turn into the tactics for that plan,
Sure.
but you must document that in a strategy plan, and you must get agreement, not just verbal, right? This must be shared, and you need to secure agreement, not just from those leaders, but from everybody in their organization, that this is the direction that we're going
Yeah.
in, and then make sure that there are teams that are now assigned to develop the tactics, and then execute on those. Finally, you want to set up a cadence to review that
Right.
regularly, at a minimum quarterly.
Yeah. So let me ask you, the document that you're describing, does it need to be super long and complicated?
Oh, absolutely not. And I'm I'm
Excellent.
I'm guilty. I'm one of the folks that I give too much information. Ask anybody that knows me. So my
Yeah.
struggle is to continue to refine it and make it more and more and more simple. But
Yeah.
no, the more simple and concise to the point, the better.
Awesome. I think for me, that's one of the key things, right? Is that I think, especially people that are new to the role, they have a tendency to think they hear the word strategy plan or strategy document and they think, oh man, that's got to be really complicated. And we don't want it to be, right? It needs to
No,
be super simple, literally what you just said. Here's where we're going. Here's what we're trying to do together. And that's it, so that people will remember it and buy off on it and
here's
not
a tip.
have to read a big document.
Here's a tip for those that struggle with this, like I do. Either way, you present it, either too much information or too little information. Either way, you're going to get a million questions, right? So
That's right. Yeah.
just simplify it. You're going to get
Yeah.
the questions anyway.
That's right. That's right. Ah, well, hey, Peter, listen, I super appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this. This was super helpful. I'm sure the community will appreciate your insights and your perspective. And you got me thinking now I need to maybe have you come back and join us for another one of these on that. Your job is a sales job, but not maybe the one you think, and maybe get your thoughts on that another time.
Oh, I would love to join. I can talk for quite a while on that one.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Peter. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for joining us on the partnership path in real life today. Remember, the real world tests theories and creates leaders. Don't stop here. Subscribe, learn, and grow with us. Let's make every experience count. Until our next real life story.